Oh, good morning, you who are surviving the winter snowstorm apocalypse. Everybody getting 4 inches of snow out there. Everybody whose back porches are a little bit icy. I just want to let you know your thoughts and prayers are in our minds, Evan's minds, as we sit here on what is somehow July 56 of this 2026 season. Evan, how we doing, bud?
I'm doing great, man. Yesterday hit the craziest parlay of my life. Had Shador Sanders to make the Pro Bowl, plus Bill Belichick to not make the Hall of Fame.
That's electric. So what's the payout on that? Like
It was
40,000 to 1?
yeah, it was actually 25,000. Yeah,
Oh,
pretty good.
that's
Got that back in August.
That's great. And of course, I mean, you're not going to tip away your sharp picks that are behind a paywall like Todd Monken to the Browns, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Todd Monken to the Browns is hilarious. I mean, there wasn't a lot of openings where you had a Pro Bowl running back, a Pro Bowl tight end, and a Pro Bowl quarterback.
Yeah, when you put it like that, it was a pretty good gig. I'm just wondering how he performed on the personality tests. They need to release those results.
They do, because he's the oldest looking first time head coach I've ever seen in my life. He's been around for a long time. Very nice post COVID resume, couple Georgia titles, some hot, high flying Baltimore Ravens offenses. We weren't really planning on talking about this, but it is just interesting to think about. There should be, I mean, if they have a nice draft, I kind of like what's happening there, if at least for fantasy wise.
Yeah. The last draft they killed it. They drafted a bunch of good players.
Mm.
But that organization's a total clown show.
You know
This
what? It's
coaching
kind of,
search has just been hilarious in every way for the Browns.
yeah.
But you're right, the roster is certainly coming around.
It is like a nice through line to, like, I don't know how much I had in common with my grandfather, although I guess the Browns were pretty dominant back then. But I know my grandchildren will be having this same conversation on a podcast in 30, 40, 50 years. The Browns, like, the world is changing, but the Cleveland Browns, as we know them, will never be any different.
Absolutely. You just love it.
Yeah. All right. Well, Evan, I have to tell you, I am 28 days sober. I just did a Peloton, and there's nothing that makes me want to drink and sit my fat ass on the couch more than this AFC West that we're about to talk about, which is so funny because we're just loaded with talent, right? Skill positions, quarterback, offensive gurus running the show, and yet almost every single player finished beneath their ADP, which is incredible.
Yeah, when you put it like that, it certainly wasn't a great year for this division in terms of fantasy success.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I would think that the NFC South would have made you want to drink more than this.
Well, the NFC South has been making me drink for years as a resident Buccaneers
Fair.
fan. So my liver might not be that nice purple texture that the doctors say a perfect liver looks like. It might look a little bit more like if you opened up a milk dud. But you know what? That's just what happens when you're a fan of the losingest division or losingest team in NFL history in the Bucs. But the Meatball King is here, and he's ready to look forward to hearing us talk about this AFC. Oh yeah, the AFC East is going to, we weren't quite sure which division to talk about every single day, just because there were so many balls still up in the air. The AFC East still has a team in competition. So does the NFC West. So now that the Broncos are out, I feel like we have a nice picture of who we're going to be talking about here. So let's just do.
Is this your burner account?
Let's, no, I do have what's funny? I'll come clean right now. I have a burner account, a huge burner account for one of the two teams left in Super Bowl contention. And if they win, I'll do a face reveal. How about that?
This is the Patriots.
This is a Patriots or Seahawks account that has over 25. It has over 25,000 followers, just like my Chuck Bass account does. If they win the Super Bowl, I'll do a face reveal night of. How about that for content?
Yeah, let's do it. I guarantee you it's the Patriots.
Yeah. And I get on my burners and I ask us softball questions is what I do. So if you ever see one in there that's like, wow, that's really a perfect question to ask right now, it's me in the chat on my other screen. But so this division, just to kind of set the tone for where they were, Broncos finished first, Sean Payton, also the play caller, Chargers, Harbaugh, Greg Roman's out, Andy Reid, terrible season from the Chiefs, Nagy, he's gone, Bieniemy comes in, and the Raiders, we still don't know. So what do you think the story of this season is for this division?
Story of the season. I guess it's probably the Chiefs just falling apart. That was a huge storyline throughout the entire season. When are the Chiefs going to turn it on? And then they just never did. The Broncos kind of took their lunch. I was thinking the Chargers might, but then the storyline for the Chargers was, no offensive line.
Yeah.
And then, everyone just kind of pointing and laughing at the Raiders.
Yeah. The Raiders showed up not that we didn't expect them to show up like they did, but they showed up like they always do. And I mean, there's analysts that I really respect that had the Raiders as a chance of making the playoffs last year. And
Yeah.
while I thought that was far-fetched, they made a moves that could at least point them in the right direction, right? Pete Carroll, you're obviously very familiar with. Geno Smith, you're very familiar with. Tyler Lockett, you're very familiar with, although that was more of a late season addition. It just was the worst recipe you could ask for when you put all the ingredients in the pan between Chip Kelly, the offensive line, the lack of skill players outside of our hurt Brock Bowers, nowhere to run for Ashton Genty. So I agree with you on all of that. Let's go to the quarterbacks here, because I think the quarterbacks are kind of the lens through which we can see what happened to a lot of these skill position players. Bo Nix, quarterback 8, finished as quarterback 8. Pretty nice. And we're doing points per game here, as we always do. Justin Herbert, quarterback 14, finished as 11. Patrick Mahomes, quarterback 6, finished as 4. Geno Smith was really the only one who didn't carry his weight. Quarterback 26 at ADP, but finished as quarterback 36. So how do you kind of view these quarterbacks?
Yeah, it's interesting. So all of them somewhat succeeded in fantasy this year, except for Geno, of course. But the skill position players didn't really get there. And I think a big part of that is that all three of these quarterbacks, ignoring Geno, rushed a lot more than usual this year.
Sure.
Or I guess Nick's maybe not more than usual, but he just rushed a lot.
Yeah.
Mahomes rushed a ton this year. Herbert went from 18 to 31 rushing yards per game. Patrick Mahomes set career highs in rushing yards and rushing touchdowns. So that kind of takes away points from the skill positions and gives them to the quarterbacks. So I think that's one reason that the skill position players underperformed this year in this division.
Yeah, I think that's a great kind of way to look at it. And Mahomes was another good example of that, right? Mahomes was having a terrific year. The team wasn't winning many games, and you weren't getting anything out of the skill position guys except for maybe, 5 weeks out of Rashid Rice, where he was a top dog. And that was kind of the story for everybody. I mean, Justin Herbert making miracles work. The EPA per pass numbers are interesting, and I do think they are like the perfect way to view this division. Broncos come in at 10th. Chiefs come in at 15th. Chargers at 26, I thought was interesting, because there was moments there where Herbert was an MVP candidate. He was able to feed Quentin Johnson. He was able to feed Ladd McConkey. He was able to feed Keenan Allen. And there was times where Rondé Gadsden looked like, a top 5 tight end going into 2026. So just a lot of overall, I think, bad taste left in their mouth. But this is probably the division that can rebound the quickest going into next year, I would imagine.
Yeah, for sure. It could potentially be this superpower division that we imagined. It just didn't quite work out this year. Specifically on the Chargers, I wouldn't be worried about their numbers really going into next year.
Yeah.
Their offense just completely collapsed after Joe Alt left the lineup. They went from 12th to 26th in EPA per play after Alt got injured around week 9. And that kind of coincides with all of the fantasy production falling apart as well. So I'm not too worried about anyone in that offense going into next year. I blame all of it on the 2 tackles being injured. They'll both be back, and they brought in Mike McDaniel.
Sure.
The only weakness, I think, of that team going forward is the interior offensive line. So they really only have one thing to focus on this offseason. So that's good. And then, I would say that's my main takeaway that I want to make sure we focus on, is that don't worry about the Chargers too much. The Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater injuries were just massive.
Yeah, it's very easy to point to what's going on here and identify the cause and identify the solution, and they seem to be addressing that pretty smartly. So props to them. I'll ask you on these quarterbacks here. So it's all but set that Mendoza will be coming in for the Raiders. So let's kind of put them aside here, as we should always do every year until they give us reason not to. I would imagine that these quarterbacks are going to go similarly in ADP as they did to this year, at least within 2 or 3, right? So you'd have Mahomes at quarterback 6, Bo Nix at quarterback 8, Justin Herbert quarterback 14. Which of those 3 do you think is the most tantalizing from like a return on investment standpoint?
I would probably rank Herbert the highest going into next year, pretty easily, actually, because Mahomes coming off the ACL, he probably won't be running as much. And their offense just kind of sucks in terms of talent around him. So Herbert's in the perfect situation. He's an awesome player. I think he has to be ranked the highest going into next year.
Sure.
Bo Nix, he's just kind of a good fantasy quarterback, solid. If I ended up with him, I'm okay with it, but I'm also not going out of my way to get him. And then Mahomes, I'll probably not be super interested going into next year, barring them having an awesome offseason.
Yeah, there's a lot of high floor guys. I think Justin Herbert's the only one that, unless the Chiefs do something crazy, has that ultra high ceiling as well. Just with the combination of ingredients like you mentioned. So co-sign all of that for sure. Let's talk about the running backs, because this is where it actually, I think, is maybe the most fascinating of all the divisions. Certainly extremely rookie heavy. And the EPA for rush numbers are fascinating. I mean, Genty is probably the most sought after overall guy here, at least dynasty rankings, redraft rankings, if they get their crap together, all that jazz. But the EPA per rush here, Chiefs were 7th, which is insane. I don't know.
That's crazy.
That might be the statistic of the season, truly. And then the Chargers and Broncos are right behind them at 13 and 14. And then the Raiders, I mean, like everybody in the world probably guessed that the Raiders finished 32nd. That checks out. So you have this kind of like this irony of the hottest back in the division being on the by far the worst rushing offense in the league, and then all these other fun kind of plucky guys coming up and around. So what are your notes, thoughts, dogs, disses, blowards on the running backs here?
Yeah, so we could start with Genty. He finished RB15 in points per game. Very good metrics this year. 5th in juke rate, 14.8% target share was a very good sign. So honestly, I thought this was a very positive Ashton Genty alone season. If you just ignore Brendan Carroll and the offensive line, that completely ruined everything. So I'm feeling good about him going forward. And then the Chiefs running backs, I think we should just not talk about them personally. So I'm not going to.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to step right in and double co-sign that one. No Chiefs running back talk.
Sweet.
Off the board.
Okay. All awesome. I don't want to talk about any of them. They all suck. Omari and Hampton, 15.1 points per game. Good metrics, 11th in yards created per touch. 12% target share is pretty good as well. I thought it was quite a good year for Hampton when he was healthy. And I'm feeling really good about him going in next year. Despite the bad offensive line, he still performed pretty well this year. So good signs for him. And then Harvey and Dobbins, I think that's the most interesting split here because Harvey is clearly a very good receiver, 6 in yards per route run. All the receiving metrics look very good, but the rushing metrics are quite bad. And that's with very good O-line play. And Dobbins' metrics are way better than Harvey's as far as rushing the ball. So I think that Harvey, I'm very concerned about his rushing ability going forward. I don't think he's very good at that. And I would be surprised if the Broncos kept relying on him in that role.
Yeah, I think that's a really key point to highlight, especially the Dobbins-Harvey split, because J.K. Dobbins, ADP of RB33, he finished as RB26 in points per game, and that's, with missing a little coming out of that last game with injury, so probably even a little bit higher. He was one of the best value picks on the board, and they relied on him heavily, and they were giving him very nice volume. He didn't have a game with at least less than 11 carries, and he was getting in that 15-20 range quite often. And then you saw in the playoffs, I mean, they rely heavily on McLaughlin and Bidet. And that is, unfortunately, a Sean Payton staple. So if you're not going to get those elite metrics out of Harvey from a rushing standpoint, he is going to be limited from what he's going to give you. If you also have Bo Nix rushing on top of all this, just a really potentially frustrating scenario, especially for a team that, just their trajectory always has been and always will be the opposite of target consolidation, whatever that is, whatever the schemed up play is, whatever the last guy you would imagine open or the last guy you would imagine the route is for. That seems to be what is bread and butter of Sean Payton. And the opposite is true for the Chargers. And I like that specifically with Omari and Hampton because Mike McDaniel has said, when I have a talented player, you're getting everything I have to offer from my offense.
Yeah. Anyone who's listened to me before probably knows that I absolutely hate Sean Payton. He just ruins everything for fantasy. You really can't rely on anybody. You could kind of rely on Dobbins for the first half of the year,
Yeah.
And then kind of Harvey the second half of the year, but that's only because of the injury. The receivers are up and down every week. We don't want to have to get into that yet, but I just want to make that clear that I hate Sean Payton, and yeah, he sucks.
It is a tale as old as time. The Raiders show up and they suck. Sean Payton shows up and he pisses you off.
Yep.
Everybody's got their thing here. So yeah, that's a good way to go. And let's do the same thing we did for the quarterbacks or for the running backs as we did for the quarterbacks. So I think when you and I did a show several weeks ago, we projected Ashton Genty to probably be, what would you say, a third, fourth round pick in redraft?
I think that's what we said at the time, but since then I've seen ranks come out both on Underdog and Fast Draft. The Rabbit just went live this week.
Sure.
And Ashton Genty is probably going to be like a second round pick.
Okay. So yeah. And a lot of that is probably going to end up coming from the fact that he is the number one guy that a lot of talented analysts will say, separate the talent from the situation. He looked good in what he was asked to do. And I agree with that.
Yeah.
So, so we've got Hampton as well. Hampton will probably be all three of these guys are at some point going to end up being the guys that go ahead of ADP in your home league draft, in your in your fun draft, whatever you end up doing. People are going to want these young, talented second-year backs as they break out.
Yeah. So quickly on the ADP for each of these guys, I would say Genty, probably like a mid to late second round pick, at least for the, these are like for best ball season, really, for the next couple of months. We'll see how things shake out, of course.
Yeah.
So Genty mid to late second. I'd say Hampton around late second, early third. So not far behind Genty at all. People are going to be really excited about Mike McDaniel and that offense taking another step.
Yeah.
And then I would say Harvey will probably be steamed up a little too high, maybe 4th/5th round, and I'll be out at that ADP. And then Dobbins is kind of a wild card because we don't know where he's going to sign yet, and he's injured.
Yeah.
I think his ADP on Rabbit right now is like 14th, 13th round, something like that. Pretty late because of the injuries, of course.
That's going to be a tricky one. And you mentioned Dobbins as a free agent. Kamani Vidal looked like a guy who deserves to be in the rotation if they're willing to bring him back. And we know that with his skill set, Mike McDaniel is very talented at using these guys at their absolute. I mean, he was doing that in a Greg Roman system. Yeah.
Vidal's interesting because he had some really good fantasy performances for sure, but the rushing metrics were not good. So I'm kind of wondering if it does become more of like a 70-30 split.
Yeah.
We'll see how it shakes out, but I'm going to be in on Amarian Hampton and probably Vidal too, just because of the contingent upside.
Yeah, there's a lot of league winning potential there, and that's not something I'm the most encouraged to always say, but it certainly does jump off the board at there. So we are going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we will hit probably the most fun part to talk about this division, which is going to be the wide receivers and the running backs.
Oh, big news. Fast Draft has 2 best ball tournaments live right now. The Origins All Rookie Game for 2026. That's right. 2026 Best Ball is upon us. All rookies with Origins, $10,000 prize pool. And then we have our Playoff Super Slam. You just pick 6 guys for the entire NFL playoffs, and you let it ride. That one also has a $10,000 prize pool. Yes, things are happening at Fast Draft. The code is FAST to get a $50 deposit match. Let's go.
Let's go. The time is upon us. Hope you guys are taking advantage of these early drafts. This is when the premium money is made, and you're going to end up being very happy. So let's get into some wide receiver chatter here. And man, it is just as interesting to talk about as it is depressing. All of these teams have just a what are we doing here kind of thing for different reasons too as well, right? And we can start with the Broncos, who have it's the Cortland Sutton and then the everybody else show, which is really frustrating because I like the talent of Troy Franklin. I like the talent of Marvin Mims, and all of those guys were playable in spot starts throughout the year. But it really was just Cortland Sutton, who had an ADP of wide receiver 22, finished at 16. Chargers, there's the absolute trio of frustration between Ladd and Quentin Johnson and Keenan Allen. The Chiefs, it was Rashee Rice or bust. And then the Raiders traded their only viable wide receiver asset. So where do you want to start with the wide receivers?
Yeah, I'd like to start with the Raiders wide receivers and just saying that let's not talk about them and move on.
Yeah, that'll be our Chiefs running back of this segment.
Yep, absolutely. And then I guess Rashee Rice is the most productive receiver in this division, 18.8 points per game when he played. So he had a really good year, elite metrics. The usage is still really weird. The A dot is insanely shallow. He's getting the ball on average like 4 yards from the line of scrimmage, which is super, super low.
Yeah.
And it raises questions for me about his long-term outlook and his like scheme versatility, stuff like that. And then we get a giant clump of other guys: Sutton, Ladd, Keenan, QJ. I guess you could throw Rashee Rice in there, Troy Franklin, or not Rashee Rice, Xavier Worthy, I meant to say. So it's just a bunch of other guys.
A bunch of other guys does feel like what we're looking at here. And I mean, I feel like I say this every show. Was Xavier Worthy the worst wide receiver pick you could have made outside of Brian Thomas Jr.?
Certainly one of them, that's for sure. 7.9 points per game this year. Poor metrics across the board. And I think that he's just a bust, honestly. I know his rookie season wasn't bad, but I don't see how his play style was ever worthy of a first-round pick, honestly. Just too small, not a great route run, or not a good enough route runner to make up for that size, and not great at the catch point either. So I don't really understand that one.
Yeah, everyone was sipping on some sauce at the end of that draft. Worthy, Coleman, Leggett, and they all let Ladd McConkey slip right by them. And you know what? Ladd McConkey is not far behind Worthy as far as a pitiful 2024 or 25 goes.
Yeah, I think he is significantly better than the other receivers you mentioned in that class.
Yeah.
But the fantasy production doesn't say that.
No, not even remotely close, really. Wide receiver 11 off the board, wide receiver 36 in points per game.
Ouch.
So we're looking, he's pushing wide receiver 4 status. And I mean, like you said, everyone's going to point to the offensive line. And I think that's true to an extent. Because you also had I felt like all 4 of these wide receivers or pass catchers, let's say, for the Chargers had a month. Felt like there was a Ladd McConkey month somewhere in the middle there. There was a Keenan Allen month. Quentin Johnson started off strong. And then Oronde Gadsden had his glow up and then was completely removed once they could not pass block anybody. He was ceding time to other blocking tight ends. So just a lot of trickiness. Let's look to the 2026 here for the Chargers. Who does the addition of Mike McDaniels and a refortification of the offensive line help the most outside of Ladd McConkey in your mind?
Yeah, I would say Hampton, and then Ladd after that. And then I guess Gadsden. I don't think it really changes anything for QJ. He'll probably just stay as the pretty good deep threat that's unreliable in fantasy, but you know, he will have spike games, that's for sure too. It's just good luck predicting those.
Yeah.
I really hope that they let Keenan walk. Not that he's a bad player or anything. He actually had pretty good metrics this year.
Yeah.
But I'm just frustrated with him eating into Ladd's workload. Yeah.
Would love to see a little bit more development and usage from Keandre Lambert-Smith as well. He was kind of a big name in the preseason. He's a little bit of a one-trick pony, but I just think that this is the kind of offense that can elevate those guys to nice best ball additions, a nice round 18 best ball pick for Lambert-Smith if he's able to get on the field. They've also got Trey Harris there, who I honestly continue to forget about, but when he's on the screen, when they target him, I think he looks like a guy that can play.
Yeah, it's weird because he's forgettable, but he definitely had some moments this year as well.
Yeah, and that's really the NFC or the AFC West. Everybody had a moment, but overall, we're going to want to forget all of these seasons. A lot of these guys, their highlight film will not come from 2026. And that's for a lot of different reasons here. Do you have any other notes on these guys before we move on to the tight ends?
Yeah, I say we should probably touch on the other Broncos receivers, or just all of them, because we didn't really talk about Sutton either.
Yeah.
Sutton, he's just kind of who he is. He's quite good against man coverage, doesn't really do anything against zone. X receiver only, pretty much, and he's pretty good at that. So keep doing that. Good fantasy performance from him this year, and he'll probably continue to age pretty solidly in that role. And then the other guys, Troy Franklin, he certainly had his moments this year. There was a month or two where he was very startable in fantasy. 10.4 points per game at the end of it. Yep. Mediocre metrics across the board. I don't personally think he's very good, but Sean Payton seems to like him every other week at least. So That's something.
Yeah,
Pat Bryant, I do think is good though. The metrics are bad for Pat Bryant, but I think he's good just by watching him.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if Bryant overtakes Franklin next year at all.
Yeah, because they gave Franklin a real shot this year. I mean, he had a stretch from week 7 to week 11 where he had almost 50 targets and very little production. He had a wide receiver 1 finished over that stretch and then never finished better than wide receiver 20. Pat Bryant definitely fits that kind of mold of the wide receiver that Sean Payton likes as well. So we'll probably see some other guys phased out, I would imagine. I mean, there's no long-term plans for Evan Ingram in this offense. I think we know what Marvin Mims is. So yeah, let's get some of these young guys up. Let's give them some opportunity, and that could be another really fun because they're going to be they're trending up. Their season ended about as poor as you could ask for considering the circumstances. But this isn't a team that it earned that number 1 seed, and I don't even think they've tapped their full potential on offense either.
For sure, no, they need to add more weapons. I would say Sutton is aging, and then behind them, I just don't trust any of those guys yet.
Yeah.
Obviously, tight end is a big issue for them. They really need to add there. And they need to bring in competition for RJ Harvey, too. So just weapons across the board, they really need this year.
Sure. Let's talk tight ends. And then when we on our way out of here, I'm going to give everybody the early stage ADP data from Fast Draft on what we're looking at for all these relevant players, just to kind of cap off these shows. I wish I had started doing that earlier, but alas, here we are. Broncos, Evan Ingram, hardly worth talking about. Tight end 8 at ADP. Maybe that is worth talking about because that is devastating. Tight end 32 finish. Gadsden, really the only relevant tight end for the Chargers. Undrafted, finishes tight end 20 in points per game. Kelsey, he held the line. Tight end 5 off the board. Tight end 8 and finish somehow, some way. And then God bless Brock Bowers, tight end 1 off the board. A lot of injuries this season, but still finished as a tight end 3. So, gosh, you would think that given that group of names, there would be some morsel to talk about here, but I'm not quite sure that there is.
Yeah, I guess we could start with Brock Bowers. I guess it was a damn good season when he played.
Yeah,
he's really good. I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, I think that we'll see him
quarterback upgrade.
Yeah, I think that this season showed to me while he was on the field that it's not going to matter who his quarterback is. It's not going to matter who his offensive coordinator is. Maybe if you're like debating him or McBride, it does. But for the most part, you're talking about a top 2 guy from here till eternity.
Yeah, and I would say he still goes around round 2, round 3 in redraft next year.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be too worried. They're going to add a receiver. I wouldn't be too worried about that either. I think Bowers is still going to be the one there. Then on Kelsey, yeah, he's probably going to retire. We'll see. There's been some rumors that maybe he won't, but I don't know. I don't believe that. 11.4 points per game, though. Quite good this year. The metrics, mediocre, but, he just kind of is who he is. There was nobody else to throw to in that offense, so he just kind of kept eating, poor metric targets,
Sure.
I guess you would say, inefficient targets.
Very.
And then Gadsden, I thought really flashed. He got like legit downfield usage in a Justin Herbert offense, which is awesome for fantasy. It's really hard to find something like that at the tight end position. But then after the Joe Alt injury, it just completely fell apart. And then, Evan Ingram sucks.
Evan Ingram, goodbye. It was a good run, or was it? Sorry for your loss there. The Gadsden one, I guess, is pretty interesting just from like, okay, hopefully we can just cut and paste what we saw from week 6 through 10 on to next year, right? I mean, 8 targets, 9 targets, 5, 5, 6, and then he's pulled off the ball. He's pulled off the field due to blocking concerns. And what I really like too is I think we kind of got to see a little sneak peek of how he might be used with the Darren Waller usage this year from Mike McDaniels and how he was able to incorporate a hyper athletic tight end that can separate, that knows how to work down the field. That's going to be really exciting. So I'm very much looking forward to that. So why don't we use that as a springboard to just kind of look at like, what's the early data, and we'll reverse engineer this, right? Let's talk tight end. So Brock Bowers, he's going to be the tight end 2. He's going to go in that mid-second round, checks every box there, makes sense. Kelsey, I think people don't know quite what to do with yet because Bieniemy is coming back. He hasn't made an official retirement announcement. We don't know if he's going to, but his data is a little bit unclear. Aronde is interesting. He's the tight end 10 going around pick 100. And then we don't really have a relevant Broncos player for the tight end position. What are your thoughts on those?
Yeah, I think Gaston is a really interesting pick around pick 100. Could see that climbing significantly.
Yeah,
for sure. I would think that pick 100 sounds more like the floor to me than the ceiling in terms of best ball.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think he's probably a solid pick there.
So do you like, let's have a little would you rather here. Do you like Sam Laporta at pick 79 or Gadsden at pick 100?
I'd probably take Gadsden with the extra 2 rounds.
Yeah, that feels like a good cushion there. Dalton Kincaid at basically the same round as Gadsden, beginning of that same round, or Gadsden himself?
Gadsden has more upside to me, I think, just because I was really hoping the Bills would change offensive play callers. That didn't happen. So Kincaid, I don't know. He's just going to play 60% of the routes, which is not what we want.
No.
There's more ceiling for Gadsden, so I think I'd go there.
Sure. Yeah. All right. Let's move on to our wide receivers here, and then we can speed round this. Not a ton of relevancy from anybody else other than maybe the Chargers here. You're going to have Rashee Rice popping in. Rashee Rice is paying quite the penalty here. He's at wide receiver 14 right now. So pick 33 is interesting, closing out that third round for a guy that I think a lot of people are going to be hyper targeting going into next year. You can wait a little bit more if you want. Cortland Sutton, who sits down at wide receiver 32, going at pick 68. And then did I lose track of our other big dog here? Ladd McConkey's going at wide receiver 18, going at pick 41. So are any of those interesting to you?
Rashee Rice will be completely dependent on what happens this offseason.
Yeah.
So right now, it seems like nothing will happen. And then that ADP will climb. And getting him in the third round will seem like a steal. But you never know. There's a lot of uncertainty there for obvious reasons. Ladd at 18, that seems fine to me. Not horrible. Hopefully they don't bring back Keenan, like I mentioned earlier. Sutton at 32, that's an awesome value, considering he finished around like 16 this year, I believe. So that's just one of those picks where he's not going to be a wide receiver 1, but he will be a wide receiver 2, and you're getting him as a wide receiver 3.
Yeah, his game is aging very well, and it looks like they kind of know who they are and what they want to do. And this was never a team, and I mean, I don't know how much I want to use Sean Payton's tenure in New Orleans as just the blueprint for Denver. I'm not sure I want to do, but this was never a team that went out and made big splash free agent signings. Like, we kind of had the idea of what the team was going to be going into the next year, unless they invested high draft capital, which I don't think they're going to do again. So that feels really nice there. And then the running backs are pretty cut and dry. You've got Omarion Hampton at RB7, Ashton Genty at RB8, and then RJ Harvey pays the price down here at RB22. All of them going in the first 4 rounds. So any of those jump out to you?
Yeah, first 4 rounds. So you have Harvey in the 4th round there. I don't love that at all. I would be out at that cost personally, because I think they'll bring in another running back that handles most of the rushing work there. Yeah, because Harvey has shown no ability to run in between the tackles yet. On Genty and Hampton, I think both of them are fine picks in the second round right now. They're both in the second round, right?
Yeah, they're going. It's a really, like, some people are going to look at this as either like a drop off or a dead zone, because you've got Bijan, Gibbs, Cook, Achane, CMC, Jonathan Taylor, rock solid, right? And then Hampton, Genty, Chase Brown. I mean, it's like there's going to be, your drafts are going to be determined by how you view those next 3 players.
Yeah, you could make a case that any of those guys could be great picks at ADP or bad picks for sure. I do lean Hampton over Genty just because there's more certainty about the situation. There's huge upside with Hampton.
Sure. All right, let's get out of here on one more would you rather here. So Ashton Genty at pick 17 or Kenneth Walker at pick 23?
Tough. I think Genty has more guaranteed volume. Walker obviously is going to see more volume next year than he saw this year. But I think I'd probably go Walker.
Yeah, that's the Walker is
but the ADP difference isn't that big.
No, it's
You said
hardly.
only 6 picks, right?
Yeah, it's negligible, really.
I would think that in my projections, which I'm starting to work on now,
Yeah.
going into next year, Genty will project better as far as like a median outcome because he's just going to see more touches.
Yeah.
From a projection standpoint than Walker. But if Walker does see the 70 to 80% of touches that he potentially could,
sure,
then he will likely outproduce Genty. So there's more upside there, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that as well. I'm going to do a kind of a different kind of one here. Amari and Hampton at pick 16, or my boy Cam Scatterbo here at pick 45. Which of those do you like more?
Got to go Scatterbo with the extra three rounds.
That's what I'm talking about right there. That's the kind of stuff that makes me, that's going to get me through the rest of January right there. I love it.
Hell yeah.
And then we've got RJ Harvey at pick 48 or Jalen Warren at pick 69.
Gotta go Jalen Warren just because I'm not an RJ Harvey guy.
Yeah, I think there is a lot more to like about that Warren situation and what ends up happening there.
I would say that they seem like similar players, like efficient guys who are good pass catchers, but Jalen Warren is actually a good runner. RJ Harvey is not. So I'm going to go Jalen Warren.
Correct. And Slashy showing up, and he said 69. Nice. Cannot think of a better way to end our AFC West exit interview, performance review, AA, whatever you want to call what this was. It was certainly cathartic, Evan. So I want to thank anybody who tuned in today. We appreciate your all support as we continue this series. Evan, where can they find you?
Yeah, shout out to Fantasy Meatball in the chat. Chuck's third burner, I believe.
Fourth.
Thanks for all your interaction, though. Seriously, appreciate it. You can check me out on Twitter at Evan Ringler FF. All my work's at PlayerProfiler.com on this channel as well. And then Fast Draft. Check out Fast Draft. We have Origins live right now. If you just enter Origins, draft 6 rookies who are actually entering the NFL draft, you are basically guaranteed to profit. So just do that. Just don't draft Dante Moore, and you will probably make money. And then also start drafting the Rabbit as well. We just launched that on Monday. 2026 Best Ball is here. Let's go.
92% ownership on Dante Moore right now. That is crushing people. I love it. Awesome. All right, guys. I second everything Evan just said. As always, I'm Chuck Bass. We'll be back on Friday with a mystery division that we shall reveal maybe just a little bit ahead of time. We appreciate your all support. Good luck to everybody out there in the storms, and stay safe. Cheers.